Healing is not something that happens to us, it is something we step into. When we have been hurt, betrayed, or wronged, our first instinct is to close ourselves off, to protect our hearts from further pain. But in doing so, we also block ourselves from growth, from transformation, from the life that is waiting for us beyond the hurt. Holding on to pain keeps us tied to the past, but shifting our energy allows us to step into a new reality, one where we are no longer defined by what happened to us, but by the strength and wisdom we gain from it. God did not design us to live in suffering. He did not intend for us to carry the weight of pain indefinitely. He gave us the power to release, to shift, to transcend. But that power is only activated when we make the conscious choice to move beyond the emotions that keep us bound. The longer we dwell on the injustice, the more we reinforce it in our own minds. The body does not know the difference between a real event. Every time we revisit the pain, we relive it, and in doing so, we keep ourselves trapped in a cycle that was never meant to be permanent. Shifting our energy does not mean ignoring what happened. It does not mean pretending we were not hurt. It means choosing not to let that pain shape our future. It means deciding that our destiny is greater than the wound we endured. It means understanding that every challenge is an opportunity for transformation. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" we begin to ask, "How can this grow me?" Instead of focusing on what was taken, we focus on what can be built. This is how we step into healing, not by waiting for time to erase the pain, but by choosing to align ourselves with something greater than the pain itself. When we shift our energy, something remarkable happens. The very people and experiences that once had power over us lose their hold. The need for closure, for validation, for justice fades away because we realize we no longer need it. We are no longer waiting for an apology to move forward. We are no longer expecting the person who hurt us to fix what they broke. We take back our power by stepping into a future where they no longer dictate how we feel or how we live. And in that space of release, we create room for something new. God cannot fill hands that are still clinging to the past. He cannot bring new blessings, new relationships, new opportunities if we are still holding on to what was lost. The moment we let go, we make space for healing to enter. The energy we once used to feed our pain is now available for growth, for joy, for purpose. We become lighter, freer, more open to the possibilities that were always there but could not reach us while we were still trapped in the frequency of the past. This is why shifting our energy is not just about moving on, it is about stepping up. It is about elevating our thoughts, our emotions, our perspective, so that we no longer attract the same cycles of hurt. When we stay in resentment, we continue to attract experiences that mirror that energy. But when we choose gratitude, when we choose love, when we choose to surrender the pain, we rise into a new level of existence. We no longer operate from the wounds of the past, but from the vision of the future. And in that future, we are not broken. We are whole. We are stronger. We are walking in alignment with the life God intended for us all along. So the real question is, are we ready to shift? Are we ready to release what no longer serves us? Because the moment we do, we step into something far greater than we ever imagined. Healing is already waiting for us. We only need to choose it. There comes a point in every journey of healing where we must make a choice. Will we continue carrying the weight of what was done to us, or will we release it and create space for something new? Pain, when held onto, becomes part of our identity. It shapes how we see the world, how we interact with others, and how we perceive ourselves. It can keep us guarded, afraid, and unwilling to trust. But what we often don't realize is that holding on to pain does not protect us. It only keeps us stuck in the same place, reliving the same emotions, attracting the same patterns. The truth is, there is no healing without release. Letting go is not just about freeing ourselves from the past. It is about making room for transformation. God never intended for us to live in a constant state of suffering. He did not design us to remain tied to the wounds inflicted by others, but He also will not force us to move forward. We must be willing to take that step ourselves. The moment we decide to release the pain, we create space for His divine intervention. We allow His wisdom, His guidance, and His healing power to move in ways we never expected. But as long as we cling to the hurt, we block ourselves from receiving what He has in store. Letting go does not mean we erase the past. It does not mean we forget or act as though the pain never existed. It simply means we stop letting it define us. We stop replaying the story, waiting for justice or hoping for the person who hurt us to change. We surrender the need for closure and recognize that true closure comes not from what happens externally, but from what happens within us. The challenge, however, is that most people are afraid of letting go. There is comfort in the familiar, even if it is painful. We become attached to our stories of suffering because they give us something to hold on to. We tell ourselves that if we let go, we are letting the person who hurt us off the hook. That if we stop thinking about the pain, it means it never mattered. But that is not true. Letting go is not about the other person. It is about us. It is about choosing peace over pain, freedom over resentment, and growth over stagnation. The moment we release the pain, we shift our energy. And when we shift our energy, everything around us begins to change. We no longer attract the same kind of hurtful experiences. We no longer find ourselves in cycles of disappointment and betrayal. Instead, we start attracting people and opportunities that align with our healing. We step into a higher version of ourselves, one that is no longer defined by what happened, but by what is possible. And in that space of transformation, we begin to understand that everything that happened to us was never meant to break us. It was meant to grow us. It was meant to shape us into the person we are becoming. The pain was not the destination. It was only part of the journey. And now, having walked through it, we are stronger, wiser, and more aligned with the future that God has prepared for us. So the real question is, are we ready to let go? Are we ready to release the pain, the resentment, the need for control, and trust that something greater is already on the way? Because the moment we surrender, we make room for miracles. We step out of the shadows of the past and into the light of what is yet to come. Healing has always been waiting for us. We just have to make space for it. When we think about healing, we often imagine it as something that happens to us over time, as if one day we will simply wake up and the pain will be gone. But true healing is not passive, it is an intentional process, a conscious choice to move beyond the wounds of the past and step into a higher state of being. It is about embracing a new identity, one that is no longer tied to the hurt, the betrayal, or the injustice, but instead aligned with the future that is waiting for us. God does not just remove pain, He transforms it. He takes what was meant to harm us and uses it for our growth. But we must be willing to release the old version of ourselves, the one that was shaped by pain, the one that held on to resentment, the one that needed justice in order to move forward. If we keep identifying with the past, we keep recreating it. Our thoughts, our emotions, our energy all remain stuck in the same patterns, attracting the same experiences, the same disappointments. But the moment we decide to shift, everything begins to change. Stepping into a new identity means seeing ourselves differently. It means no longer viewing ourselves as victims of our circumstances, but as creators of our future. It means breaking free from the belief that our pain defines us, and instead recognizing that we are far greater than anything that has happened to us. This is where transformation begins, not in waiting for time to heal us, but in actively choosing a new way of being. But this shift does not happen overnight. It requires us to release old emotions, to let go of the stories we have told ourselves about why we are the way we are. It requires us to stop seeking validation from those who hurt us and to stop waiting for apologies that may never come. True freedom comes when we no longer need closure from anyone else, when we realize that the only closure we need is the one we give ourselves. When we embrace this new identity, we begin to align with a different energy. We no longer attract the same toxic relationships or the same painful experiences because we are no longer vibrating at the frequency of that pain. Instead, we start drawing in opportunities, people, and experiences that reflect our healing. We step into relationships that honor us, experiences that uplift us, and a future that is no longer dictated by our past. And in this process, something extraordinary happens. We begin to see that everything we went through was not in vain. The pain, the struggles, the betrayals, they were all preparing us for something greater. They were refining us, strengthening us, molding us into the person we were always meant to become. When we look back, we no longer see ourselves as broken, but as transformed. The wounds that once defined us have now become the foundation of our wisdom, our compassion, our strength. This is how God works. He does not just remove the pain, He elevates us beyond it. He calls us into a higher version of ourselves, one that is no longer burdened by what was, but fully aligned with what is possible. And as we step into this new identity, we begin to live in a way that is free, unshaken, and fully empowered. So the real question is not whether we will heal. That has already been set in motion. The real question is whether we are ready to embrace the version of ourselves that exists beyond the pain. Are we ready to release the past, to stop defining ourselves by what happened, and to fully step into the life that is waiting for us? Because the moment we make that choice, everything shifts. We are no longer bound by what was. We are stepping into what will be. There is a universal truth about pain. It lingers as long as we allow it to. The moment we experience betrayal, rejection, or any form of emotional wound, our mind immediately attaches meaning to it. The brain, wired for survival, replays the event over and over again, trying to make sense of it. It builds stories, assigning blame, fueling anger, and justifying why we feel the way we do. But what most people don't realize is that every time we relive the pain, we are not just remembering it, we are re-experiencing it. The body does not know the difference between an actual event and the memory of that event. So as we revisit the hurt, we trigger the same stress response, flood our system with the same stress hormones, and remain trapped in the same emotional state as if it's happening all over again. This is where we unknowingly give our power away. The longer we hold on to the pain, the more it defines us. It becomes part of our identity. We wake up thinking about it, talk about it, feel the weight of it, and in doing so reinforce the neurological circuits that keep us attached to the past. Because the energy we are broadcasting, whether it's resentment, bitterness, or sadness, keeps attracting more of the same experiences. We get stuck in a loop, asking why life keeps bringing us the same kind of people or the same kind of pain. But the real question is, what energy are we choosing to embody? God in His infinite wisdom has already provided a way out, but it requires us to step beyond the familiar emotions that keep us bound. We cannot change what happened, but we can change how we respond to it. If we continue to focus on the injustice, we become prisoners of it. If we keep asking for explanations, waiting for closure, or expecting an apology that may never come, we are delaying our own healing. The truth is, the people who hurt us have already taken enough. Why continue giving them access to our energy, our thoughts, and our well-being? There is a shift that needs to happen. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? We must ask, what is this trying to teach me? Because everything, every betrayal, every disappointment, every rejection is an opportunity for transformation. If we can stop seeing pain as a punishment and start seeing it as a platform for growth, we free ourselves. We begin to understand that nothing is random, and every challenge holds the seed of a greater purpose. This is where faith comes in. Faith is not about ignoring what happened. It's about trusting that God sees all things, knows all things, and is already handling what we cannot. It's about understanding that divine justice is not our responsibility to enforce. The universe operates on cause and effect, and every action has its consequences. It is not our job to make sure that those who hurt us are held accountable. That is already written into the fabric of existence. Our only job is to release, to shift, to step into a new reality where the past no longer defines us. When we hold on to pain, we are choosing to stay in alignment with what broke us. But when we decide to let go, we shift into alignment with something greater. We stop seeing ourselves as victims and start recognizing our own power. The moment we surrender, something remarkable happens. The energy we once gave to our pain is now available for something new. We begin to attract different experiences, different people, different opportunities. We rise above what was and step into what can be. So the question is, are we ready to stop living in the past? Are we ready to stop giving energy to what no longer serves us? Because the moment we do, we give permission for God to move in ways we never imagined. We create space for healing, for growth, for transformation, and most importantly, we step into the freedom that was always meant for us. Everything in the universe operates on energy. Every thought we think, every emotion we feel, every intention we set, it all carries a frequency. And when we hold on to the pain of what others have done to us, we unknowingly keep ourselves tied to that same energy. We may believe we've moved on, but if we are still thinking about the injustice, still replaying the hurt, still feeling the sting of betrayal, then we are still connected to it. The energy of our past is shaping our present. And as long as we remain in that emotional state, we will continue to attract experiences that reinforce it. We often think that by holding on to anger or resentment, we are somehow holding others accountable, but in truth, we are only imprisoning ourselves. The person who hurt us may not even remember the pain they caused. They may have moved on with their life, unaware of the emotional turmoil we are still carrying. And yet every time we think of them with bitterness, every time we relive the moment of betrayal, we reactivate the stress response in our body. Our heart races, our muscles tense, and we become flooded with the very chemicals that keep us in survival mode. This is not just an emotional experience. It is a biological one. We are keeping our body locked in the past, and in doing so, we prevent ourselves from stepping into the future we desire. God, in His divine wisdom, did not design us to live in a constant state of pain. He did not create us to be trapped in cycles of resentment and suffering. He gave us the ability to choose, the ability to shift our energy, the ability to rise above what was and step into what can be. But the choice is ours. If we continue to focus on what went wrong, if we continue to dwell on what we lost, we will keep vibrating at the frequency of that pain. And as long as we remain there, we cannot receive the new blessings that are meant for us. The energy we emit is the energy we attract. If we live in anger, we will encounter more situations that fuel that anger. If we dwell in sadness, we will find more reasons to be sad. This is not a punishment, it is simply the way energy works. The universe responds to what we are broadcasting. And so if we want change, if we want healing, if we want freedom, we must first change our frequency. This does not mean we ignore what happened. It does not mean we pretend we were not hurt. But it does mean that we stop allowing that pain to dictate our future. It means that we take back our power, not by seeking revenge or waiting for an apology, but by shifting our energy to something higher. We stop reacting and start creating. Instead of dwelling on what was done to us, we focus on what we are building. Instead of asking why something happened, we ask what we can learn from it. Instead of waiting for justice, we trust that divine justice is already in motion. When we make this shift, something extraordinary happens. The people and situations that once had power over us begin to lose their grip. We no longer feel the need to prove anything to anyone. We no longer feel the urge to justify our pain or seek validation for our wounds. We simply rise. We step into a new version of ourselves, one that is no longer defined by the past, but is instead guided by the vision of the future. And as we do, we attract new experiences, new opportunities, and new relationships that align with this higher state of being. The question is not whether those who hurt us will face consequences. The question is, are we willing to release them and step into our own healing? Are we willing to let go of the energy that binds us to the past and embrace the limitless possibilities of the future? Because the moment we choose to shift, the moment we decide to break free from the cycle of pain, we open ourselves to the life that was always meant for us. There is a natural law woven into the fabric of existence, a law that governs every action, every intention, every choice. It is the law of cause and effect. What we put out into the world, we receive in return. Every thought, every word, every action carries energy, and that energy does not disappear. It must come back in some form. This is why we do not have to concern ourselves with seeking justice or revenge. The universe, through divine intelligence, is already balancing the scales. When someone wrongs us, our immediate response is often to demand justice on our terms. We want to see the person who hurt us experience the same pain. We want closure, an apology, some acknowledgement that they understand the harm they caused. But the reality is, waiting for human justice keeps us tethered to the pain. It keeps us focused on them rather than on our own healing. And more often than not, the apology never comes, the closure never arrives in the way we expect, and we are left holding on to resentment that only drains our spirit. But here's what we must understand. God's justice is not like human justice. He does not react in anger or in haste. He moves with wisdom, seeing the full picture we cannot see. He knows the hearts of people, their intentions, their wounds, their weaknesses, and he deals with them in a way that is beyond our understanding. Some people experience consequences immediately, while others go through a long journey before they truly see the effects of their action. But one thing is certain: no one escapes the natural order of divine justice. This is why we do not need to spend our energy trying to control the outcome. If we continue to dwell on how unfairly we were treated, we keep ourselves bound to the energy of the wound. If we obsess over whether or not the person will ever pay for what they did, we remain trapped in the vibration of revenge. But the moment we release, the moment we surrender the need for justice to God, we free ourselves. We step out of the cycle of pain and into a higher order of existence. Letting go does not mean we excuse what was done to us. It does not mean we allow harmful people back into our lives. It means we recognize that we are not responsible for making everything right. Our only responsibility is to rise, to step into a higher state of being, where we are no longer defined by what happened to us, but by what we choose to become. And when we do this, something powerful happens. The people who once had power over us lose their grip. The situations that once triggered pain no longer hold the same weight. We begin to feel lighter, freer, more connected to something greater than ourselves. We stop waiting for justice because we know that it is already in motion. We stop looking back because we understand that our future is far greater than our past. And in that space of surrender, God begins to work in ways we never expected. He brings new opportunities, new relationships, new experiences that align with the energy of our healing. We no longer attract the same cycles of pain because we have shifted into a higher reality. The universe responds to our transformation by bringing us exactly what we need to move forward. So the real question is not whether those who hurt us will be held accountable. That is already certain. The real question is whether we will allow ourselves to be free. Will we continue to carry the weight of the past, or will we trust that divine justice is already at work? Because the moment we let go, the moment we surrender our need for control, we step into the freedom that has been waiting for us all along.